effects until we get to the broad framework where we are able to move away from debate to dialogue. I think the groups as announced currently are still in the debate. And dialogue has its place in every democracy because there will always be issues that will require a higher level of cooperation, where we must forget political party lines. We must forget any other allegiance and just work towards consensus building. It will take a lot of humility to cede ground on any area that, for instance, take the cost of living. Kenya Kwanza, led by the president, will assert themselves and say, we are working very hard. The Prime CS is already on record that it will be a rough 2 years, but after that, it will be bliss. Azimio will come and say, look, our members of parliament voted with the people. We even brought amendments that were shot down. There have been allegations that parliament used, but for us to discuss cost of living, we must set aside the debate and move to dialogue. So as at now, and I think this is what the whole nation, from clergy to professional association to we in civil society to media, everybody had gotten to the point where our institutions of democracy are no longer availing the needed solution. So now it is time to create that environment. Until that environment is created, let me use the example of the clergy. The clergy has already called for repeal the Finance Act 2023, so that at least we are where we were in 2022 as we move around a few things within the economy, work on inflation that now is going down for the third month, work on our debt repayment, very, very specifically, realign our budget. But for now, the starting ground may be actually, let's start where we were at the end of the financial year, 2022-2023. But we will not be able to move to the core issue if we are still in the contest and the debate mode. This is no longer about which political side has more power, has better agency, cares more. It is about what must be done for a country that has an economic crisis, has a democratic governance crisis. We do not have IBC commissioners. What happens if any seat was to fall vacant? And no seat is protected from nature. It may be protected from all other positions. No position is protected from nature. So it would not be, we may even have a vacancy at the presidency, a senatorial or a gubernatorial position. Who runs that particular election? What happens at that point? Do we want to now start scampering and trying to reconstitute an IEBC when we have another major crisis of trying to fill a major position? So that's a major, major problem that we have right there. In addition to the cost of living, we may even say do away with certain taxes. But Trevor, education in this country is in ICU. From university to TVET to secondary school to CBC, where there's supposed to be an increase of 35,000 teachers, but apparently that is one teacher per CBC junior secondary. What discussions, why wouldn't we agree to come on the table and have that particular discussion? Now, the unfortunate thing is the history of setting up dialogue is there are always quick consensus that must be made before we do the dialogue. So 2007 immediately was the agreement that there would be formation of a government of national unity. So as the political leadership went on the negotiation table, they knew we are negotiating for Kenya, but all of us have found our space on the table. So that became the quick consensus, and there was truth.
Yeah.
Then we created an entire process of truth, justice, reform, and institutional reform, and finally, constitutional reform. The handshake was another form of dialogue. Very, not bipartisan, it was by people. I don't know, 2 people initiated it, and all of a sudden we had a handshake. It created its own levels of conflict as well, but there was supposed to be an inclusive agenda that birthed BBI. Yeah. Again, within it was some creation of power and so on. So that is my only problem, that the political leadership must create that consensus. Okay. I suspect, even in this particular process, we will start with that process of assuring the political leadership your power, your influence is safe. Then after that, they will be ready to hear from us, do not increase the fuel levy. Okay. 8% in the current circumstances is hard enough. 16%, we perish. Listen to Kenyans. Okay. And unfortunately, in the current format of things, what's the avenue for you and I to participate in this process? In a bipartisan dialogue. Even the framing of it is exclusionary, yet dialogues in democracy are supposed to create the space for inclusion. And how the initial group has been set up, I hope they will then lead us in expanding that particular task force to be more inclusive